Here are two bits, one of which I have treated, so it's had a couple of layers of MSE, one maybe 2 layers of varnish, and then MSE again just to give it a nice key. This is plain Makie, just dyed Makie flesh, and first of all I'm going to experiment with the normal colours, and then I'll get on with doing the head. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. I put some like opalescent paint in my airbrush, which it doesn't like very much because it's got like glittery stuff in, but it just sort of stuck straight to the ordinary Makie flesh, and it sort of just splurged on the primed one, which is nice, but it makes me think that now I can remove this with a little bit of magic eraser, and this might be a little more difficult. I might actually try this on camera, so if I just make it a little bit wet in the corner. Let's have a look, see what happens. Oh look, yeah, it's coming off. How much is coming off though? I also put a little bit of pink and a little bit of yellow of these just to see what would happen, rotating colours for airbrushes, but yeah, mine are a little bit old, mind you. But really, as I expected, it doesn't sit on the surface. They're only really good for using on white paper. Okay, well that's pretty much come off without any hard scrubbing. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, this is coming off as well. That's pretty good. Oh well, it's probably because it's an acrylic colour, although that's the issue. I think that was the very first issue I had, was bits of magic eraser, because it's just as rough as the Makie flesh. So not a problem though, it's nothing that a bit of water or even a thumb won't get rid of. But it's wet, you can see there now, that's soaked in. So I would have to wait for that to dry before doing any more to it. But this one is as is. In fact, do you know what, I can see better in the camera than I can in reality. It's making it nice and light. Anyway, you get the idea. It's like I wanted. It's easier to get stuff off of the prepared surface than it is off of the straight onto the Makie. So right, brush, pencils, pastels next. Back in a sec. It's quite interesting. This is the Makie flesh one, and this is the prepped surface. If I can hold them. At first glance, the actual Makie flesh on its own looks better, but I actually prefer, as I'm sure you're all aware by now, the prepped surface because of a number of reasons. Now, paint, when I'm doing a face-up, I don't use an awful lot of paint. And the first line you can see down here is like an acrylic ink, which you can use in an airbrush or on a paintbrush or what have you. And it loves the Makie flesh because it can grip it, it can soak in, and it can get a good key. Which it can do with MSE as well on the prepared surface, but it will sit more on the surface. So on a first stroke, and this is literally one stroke, on a first stroke it won't look that deep, so you'll have to do it in layers, much like a lot of things. Although the pencil, on the other hand, does the opposite. It kind of rubs against the normal Makie flesh, which dilutes the effect, basically. It's like chalk on a chalkboard. No matter how sharp the pencil and how careful I was, and I went over it a few times, that both sides of this are exactly the same technique. it just doesn't look very bright. It's a white, green and red pencils, and a bit of orange and yellow on the flower part over here as well. But as you can see on the prepared surface, it comes up nice vibrant colours, and if the pencil was a bit sharper, you know, I was doing it quick, if the pencil was a bit sharper, it would look great. Oh, sorry about the light. As we go up, this little block of colour here is pastel, just put on with a Q-tip. Now, it looks really good on this side, but you get very little control. It literally places the powder into the flesh, and you get a real heavy, you know, if you imagine you're trying to blush cheeks, all of a sudden you've got loads of red blush on the cheek. Whereas on the prepared surface, you can do a step at a time. So you start off light and you can build it up. And I also used a rubber around the edges to get a straight line, and it's a perfect straight line on this side. Sorry about the light, my protector moved, hold on a sec. I'll get it to, yeah, there we go. Yeah, perfect line around this side. This one, however, is a little blurry at the edges. The rubber actually sort of grates on the Makie flesh a little, so it's harder to brush away the rubbings without brushing the actual pastel as well. The orange paint is gouache. Again, I had to go over it a few times for it to show up on the Makie flesh, but it liked it. It sort of soaked in and got a grip. On the prepared surface, it would have a tendency to blob a little and be quite watery and separate slightly, so you'd have to be very careful. And then acrylic was the beige acrylic here, which again sort of disappears. What the Makie flesh tends to do is push the bristles of a brush apart, because you're rubbing against the surface. Whereas if I had been using a fine line brush, which I wasn't, but a fine liner, you would get much finer lines on a prepared surface. And again, I had to go over it. This is literally just one stroke of the brush, and this I had to go over a few times even just to get it to show. Sorry if it's not in focus. Get it back here a little bit more. So there you go. You can see where the pastel didn't rub out very well and sort of blurred a little bit. So I hope that's a good illustration of the difference between normal Makie and prepared Makie. And now what I'm going to do is, just with water, I'm going to try and remove them and see what occurs. Okay, there we go. It's getting a bit dark now, so I'm going to have to be quick. There's the argument for and against. Really not a lot in it. I can see through the camera actually, rather than with the naked eye. I can't see that because it's quite dull in here. But on the raw Makie flesh, there is still a little bit of the acrylic ink in a line just there that can be seen. But do you know what? I think with a bit of scrubbing of the magic eraser, that will probably come off. And if it doesn't, then a quick zip around the dishwasher or a scrub under running water we'll probably get that off. But for me personally, I will always be a fan of prepping a surface first. It's come off just with the magic eraser, really clear. I should imagine as well with a couple of layers of Mr. Super Clear, possibly nail varnish remover, or the alcohol Winsor & Newton would then be required to cut through the different layers of MSC, but I'm sure I'll cover that in another video. So that's it. Thanks for watching. More coming soon.